Okay, very good afternoon. Good morning from my side of the world, from Buenos Aires. Dober den to everyone. We very much hope from our end that the start of your week has been a fruitful one. Happy New Year to those that are tuning in to one of our webinars. I'm not sure if it's like the first of the year or if we already had one, but it's definitely like my first. For those that are tuning in for the first time, I'm Krista Turaki, CEO at INVR. And I am introducing this webinar with a big smile on my face because that's our neighborhood. As you probably know, like I'm Greek. This is the heart of everything, where the company started as well, working with the Balkans region. So it's a really big pleasure and honor to welcome you all to this webinar, where we are going to touch upon the new opportunities, the future of the energy sector of the region. The title is Energy Evolution in the Balkans, Key Trends and Opportunities. I will not introduce the region to you. I think that those that are looking into Eastern Europe, Mediterranean, are very familiar with the huge opportunities in each European, but Balkan country. And for that, because it's a region of it's very homogeneous region, in fact, but at the same time, it's consisted of like countries with very different flavor. That's why we brought two different speakers from two different backgrounds that will give us their own thoughts, understandings, and experiences in their field. So I will first say very good morning to Alex Gospodinov, who is joining now from London, CEO at Huracan. Good morning, Alex. Good afternoon, actually. We lost Voya. He will be with us. Very good afternoon in London. Morning-ish.
It is still morning. Good morning, good day, Kirsa and everyone. Prove. So it's good to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Of course. And good morning, afternoon to Voya Simovic, MOD of INA. You can hear us now well, right, Voje?
Yes, I can hear you very well. I can see you, but I'm sorry it's breaking up. So good morning to everybody. The connection is probably poor. So right now it's fine. So somehow I exited. It was IT issue, not my mistake. Sorry.
I've done it a million times, so you don't have to worry about this. We're all used to, during COVID, we had these wonderful technical issues. But well, let me kickstart this with Alex. If you can give us a couple of minutes, like a presentation of what you're currently working on, focusing on, what Huracan is about for those that don't know. And I will ask the same question after that to Voya, and we can kickstart our webinar.
Sure. Thank you. So I'm CEO at Huracan, and CEO in my case stands for Chief Everything Officer, right? Because we are a fairly small and new organization. We've been around for just under 3 years, and key focus is on Southeast Europe and Balkans and Eastern Balkans in particular, Romania, Bulgaria, and Moldova as well. And we've been trying to accomplish several things across power generation and carbon storage as well. Some of the most notable projects that we are currently trying to implement are in the Black Sea. So it's a Black Sea offshore wind. So we've got a site in development, speculative development, right? So we are not at the point in the regulatory landscape where these projects are exclusive to us. But there is one site in Romania, 3 sites in Bulgaria. So that's quite exciting, and something which we see more and more across the Balkans. And on the carbon storage side, so we're just trying to capitalize on that opportunity to participate in the carbon sequestration value chain in Europe, and conceptualizing a common use infrastructure for carbon storage and transportation in Romania in particular. Then we've got some power generation development projects on the wind side in the northern part of the Balkans, which is towards Republic of Moldova. So that's about us. A few other exciting things are happening on biomethane and sustainable aviation fuel, but more conceptual, and we can talk about it on that webinar as well.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Alex. And going from the Eastern Balkans to the Western Balkans, Hrvoje, can you also introduce yourself? Well, the company is massive, but I think it might also need an introduction. What you're currently working on yourself, your department, and so on and so forth.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. I'm very happy to be part of this webinar and general project. My name is Hrvoje Šimović. I'm a board member of INA. INA means Industrija nafte in Croatian. It means basically oil industry. INA is mid-sized European company, but in this region is the largest company, not only in our sector, but in general, the whole economy. INA is a vertically integrated company, so that means that we have upstream department with our own production of exploration and production of oil and gas, and downstream with the refinery in Rijeka and the retail network of around 500 service stations, mostly in Croatia, but also in Bosnia and Herzegovina and Montenegro. So that is as INA place in, let's say, this region. But I have to remind you that INA is part of even larger group, that is small group, with the operations not only across Central Europe, but also in Serbia as part of, if we are talking about Balkans. What is, beside, why is INA crucial for not only Croatian economy, but also for mostly Bosnia and Herzegovina, because of the supply of oil derivatives and gas in Croatia. So we are, except production, so it is very important that we produce around 20%, something like that, of oil and gas purposes needed in Croatia. But also we supplied, for example, not only Croatian market almost the most, but the around 40-50% of Bosnia and Herzegovina market with gasoline and diesel basically as our products. So we are very important for the region, for the stability of not only economy but energy sector, and also as a responsible company, we are developing certain projects regarding the decarbonization issues. Maybe we can talk about that later. It's several streams. There are several streams like geothermal energy, green hydrogen, biomethane production, and we are starting talking about also CCS and basically CCU, utilization of carbon. For now, I think that is enough.
Super, Hrvoje. As INA is a regional leader, right? And I love the fact that we have these organizations that were very traditionally like oil and gas producers, suppliers, but now we see a trend, of course, in decarbonization. But I want to understand first, before we go into this very interesting topic for Alex as well, how could you describe the role of INA groups in shaping the energy industry today? Okay, and we know that there are many, and I will combine it with the sustainability also question about the EU, because Croatia is an EU country, right? So the question is, how is INA working to meet these regional and EU sustainability goals, okay, while at the same time works towards a broader regional energy strategy? And then I want to go more into the decarbonization roadmap of the company.
As you said in the beginning, we are traditional oil company, and we are pretty much dedicated to our traditional business. And let's not. Maybe I will be now rather rash. oil and gas, especially gas, but oil will be here for at least next 30 years. And if you look at World Energy Outlook, you will see that even with the development of electrical vehicles, the demand for the oil in general on the world level will slightly decline. We have to be aware that the population is increasing. There is energy poverty around the world in certain parts of world. So to meet that demand, it cannot be done without hydrocarbons. So the maybe in some parts of the world that process of transition will be faster. But even looking at all other traditional companies, I believe that now this process will slow down because Europe in general and European Union is losing competitiveness towards, I don't know, India, China, and even the United States, especially now with the President Trump, whose agenda is drill and more drill. So INA is investing a lot. Let's say around 20% of our capex is in decarbonization projects, and that is around average of, let's say, traditional oil company. But looking at, I don't know, BP or some other large companies, they are revising their plans, and basically they will invest a lot, but slightly less than they originally planned. So I believe that traditional oil business will be here, and we have to be here until the technology develops to be cheap enough to enter the regular market. And I believe that the next several decades, at least 2 or 3 decades, will be the major role player in providing basic demand for energy. I'm talking about now hydrocarbons, not electricity. That we can discuss that later. I can also contribute to that discussion.
Completely. And this is a very interesting topic that we cannot, like we were talking 2 years ago, the focus was way more on renewables and pure renewables. And you know, with everything that is happening around us, of course, like a very volatile situation and well, times that demand for larger corporations to adapt the strategy to what is like, and very fast, very quickly, right, to whatever is happening out there. And it is also like the Balkans are a region that traditionally is very quick to understand, but slow to adapt because of the country's, let's say, needs. There's a very big need for energy today. The region is growing, but at the same time, the role and competitiveness is something that I think needs to be further discussed and explored, right? I think that we can do better, speaking as a citizen of the Balkans. Now, Alex, what are your thoughts on the topic, right? Different situation with you, different projects in the eastern side of the Balkans. But how can you, what are your thoughts in how that side of the Balkans is responding to the current sort of like trends? And also, I know you work close with technology. So is this part of the conversation today? Like, we're talking about tradition right now, but what about technology? Is it being applied? How? And maybe you can let us know a bit more about the other side of the Balkans.
Sure. I think that technology is important part of the conversation, because you've got pure play renewables like wind, solar, and battery storage, which are fairly understood, easy to build. They don't really need as much as much expertise and complexity in delivering those projects, right? And small regional, local players can do them, again, depending on the scale of those projects. And they are developing. I think today we are at the stage in the cost curve for those technologies where you don't need to wait for the government to provide you some sort of subsidy or support. So a lot of the development is driven by private sector, and it will continue to do so. But when we start entering category of doing something with that renewable energy, right? Or decarbonizing industry where you cannot do it with renewable energy. And that's where it becomes far more complex and far more challenging for just ordinary developer to achieve. And I think that's the territory where companies like INA can play a very large role, because what we found is that if you talk about molecules, right, whether it's a carbon sequestration, whether it's hydrogen or any synthetic fuels, it's really oil and gas companies who are best positioned to handle those value chains. Of course, the developers like us can say, "Oh, we've got a hydrogen project and the technology is there. I can put electrolyzer on the side," but then, how do I get it to the market? Nobody has a answer, right, to that question. So it's all fantasy. It's all scientific kind of exercises, and really the only ones who can do it at scale and cost efficiently, I think, are very large players. And of course, you've got a number of them in the region. So you've got in the West, right? You've got of course OMV in Romania, who hopefully will play a very large role in that sector. The carbon sequestration specifically, a lot of the activity today in that sector in Europe is in North Sea, right, or around North Sea. But you wouldn't take carbon emissions from the Balkans and transport them to the North Sea, right? So you need to have sequestration solution in the region. And when we, say, as a private developer, volunteer and go to a regulator, go to a certain government, asking for visibility on the pathway, how we can structure the project, right? Make it palatable for a larger investor or a company which has no risk appetite to do all this early stage permitting work. We very quickly get to the wall, right? And the wall is that you need to have experience in actually working underground, and that experience comes from being able to work with traditional hydrocarbons. So I'm a big proponent of oil and gas companies being more active across that sectors where you deal with molecules, right? Of course, if we talk about putting solar panels on the ground, I mean, it's not necessarily a type of expertise which requires ability to work with complex projects. But just going back to the subject in general, I think a lot is happening and has happened in the last 2 years in Western Balkans on development of renewables, and that process will continue. Everything that was happening in Western Europe 10 years ago, in Poland 3 years ago, in Greece 3 years ago, everything is now happening in the middle of the Balkans, right? So the crowd of investors and developers are kind of moving to that space. And on economy side, of course, a lot of the technologies on power generation, at least, they simply make more sense than some traditional sources. And of course, in our region in the Balkans, that some countries simply don't have access, right, to traditional traditional hydrocarbons to generate power, or they cannot do it cost efficiently. So of course, it's all positive, the at scale development of energy sector, but at the same time, what I personally would like to see is similar trend that people are experiencing in States, in UK, where per capita power generation is growing, and it's growing because of this new digitalization, right? We don't see it yet in the Balkans, and I think if it happens, and when it happens, it will be an explosive demand growth. And we may be not ready, right, for that demand growth in the Balkans. And if the region is not ready, then of course that growth will have to happen somewhere else, which will be unfortunate.
Many interesting points, and I will touch upon the readiness and maybe go to Hrvoje. I saw you taking loads of notes, and I know you have loads of comments because some of them fall right into your expertise. So what are your thoughts on Alex's pitch? Very interesting points, by the way, Alex. I also took notes so we can touch upon later. So very interesting. So digitalization not yet available in Balkans, like we're not ready yet. the role of the major companies in the region, and how they can, encourage and actually kickstart this transformation, not just transition, right? The knowledge, the capacity, and the private sector, like, driving this change. What are your thoughts?
I will reflect to two issues. I can agree with Alex regarding that oil companies who dealt with hydrocarbons and molecules in general can help in this part of segment of the decarbonization. And the whole other story is electricity generation, and I will have additional comment on that regarding slow adaptation of those processes in the Western Balkans. Yes, regarding companies like INA, yes, they can not only INA but in general other or traditionally all companies can help dealing with molecules. I can for example, like green hydrogen development. So, for example, let me make an example. In Croatia, we are developing, or INA is developing a green hydrogen plant, and beside the electrolyzer, we have our own solar plant for that. And what is now always the question in this project is, of course, risk, chicken or the egg. What will come first, demand or supply? And it's of course expensive project. And basically, what help us that we plan to use that hydrogen in our refinery process for our hydrocracker, and hopefully that tomorrow there will be developed demand for green hydrogen, for example, for buses, for public transformation, or maybe even trucks, and that we can scale up that project and production, and hopefully that our competition will also develop similar projects. And in that case, like in electricity development, basically you need the help from government, not only central government, local government, to create that demand, especially for example for public transportation. But on the other hand, for example, we are now talking about how that public transportation buses will develop in Croatia. Should cities buy electricity, generated buses, or green hydrogen buses, or biomethane, or some synthetic fuels buses, or something like that? So the huge in this case, the strategy is necessary. That we foresee 5 or 10 years before what will happen, in which direction we will go, and that will help, of course, private investors to develop those projects in this area. So I gave you an example around green hydrogen. Another comment to Alex is that there was, like, not only Alex but also you, that the Eastern and Western Balkans in general are slow to adopt in certain ways. I will keep the comment in general. We are rather underdeveloped compared to Western Europe. So Croatia is okay, maybe flagship. Greece also is member of EU and Eurozone, but to other countries like, I don't know, Albania, North Macedonia, Kosovo, Montenegro, Serbia. So they certainly have certain issues and in energy generation. Now, the Western Europe developed on the basis of coal, oil, and it's cheap energy. You have situation, for example, in Serbia and Montenegro, that you have coal there, it's cheap, it's there, and they use it a lot to generate electricity. And now, there is a huge hydro potential, and there is, for example, Croatia is pioneer in hydro potential in the region. But we now have to find cheaper way for them to transfer, for electricity production from coal, which is there and cheap, to go, I don't know, to gas or renewables. But you have to have base energy which is rather cheap for the current status or development of the country, and that's why I think that my thesis is that Western Balkan countries need more time to adapt certain processes than for example Western Balkans or Western European or Central European countries. And to be quite frank, Western Balkans doesn't have major pollution issues, or we are not contributing to world's pollution in general, or carbon emissions. We are, but not in that percentage. And I see that they have to have, these countries, some kind of lack more time to develop the projects and the energy development, which is cheap enough, competitive enough for them to have stable development. Let's be quite frank, average person doesn't care how the energy is generated, as long as it's cheap and available. So first available and then cheap enough, to be there. So that is my case. That is the second one that I wanted to emphasize.
Completely. And again, as you said, it's a chicken and egg, right? That you need to develop cheap energy. You need to, and consumer does not agree with the cost of transition and of renewables and of innovation. And we're talking about some countries that are now exiting. Some of them, well, we don't say it out loud, but they have had like challenges, not just with energy poverty, but with poverty in general, right? We're exiting this stage where the Balkans become more, I would say, they're flourishing in some ways, but through different economies, not energy. Now, at the same time, we do have some, I didn't hear anything about technology, right? And there is a cost for technology. Do you both, like I would like to hear from both, do you believe that currently in the Balkans, we do own, we do possess, do we utilize, or are we planning to utilize and use technologies that are modern and they can facilitate our operations? Technology changes every 6 months, right? So are we deploying enough, and are we using enough technology to boost and go towards this energy transition as fast as we can? Or are we lacking perhaps the funds, perhaps appetite? I don't think the knowledge, because we have a very good human resources base, but what are your thoughts on that? And what if we're not using the right technology for the energy transition and it has a cost? How can we boost the use of that and purchasing, buying and using and deploying this technology to assist our projects? And we can also discuss about the types of technology. Hrvoje, it could be regarding, for example, hydrogen. Alex, I want to hear your thoughts as well. So if we can touch a bit more about the more practical innovation of the energy transition in the Balkans.
On my side, look, on power generation, traditional renewables in terms of solar, wind, and battery storage to balance that, I think that is developing at a relatively, I think, reasonable rate. Of course, within the Balkans, you've got EU and non-EU member states, and for non-EU member states, it's just a tougher market because the spectrum of investors is smaller. But the development is there. What I think is underutilized today in the region quite significantly is the biomass, right? So it's a very well-established agricultural region, and I don't think we do enough in terms of utilizing the either residue of that biomass, right, or utilizing energy crops, including them into rotation when food crops are not growing. And that gives you essentially two things, right? One is biogas to produce electricity, but another, which may be more exciting thing for many countries, is biomethane, which you can inject into the grid, right? And you get it by upgrading biogas by removing CO2, which probably you can also sell in the local market. So that's an interesting opportunity, given again agricultural pedigree in the region, and I don't see it being utilized as much as it's done, for example, in places like Denmark, Germany, UK. Where you have large arable lands. One which is closer to my heart, of course, I will say as well, is offshore wind. Right, we've been waiting for something to happen on policy for quite a while. I think for Croatia maybe a little bit easier for Western Balkans, because it's wind resources far more exciting. Not far, but better. It's more exciting than in the Black Sea. So wind resources is higher, and you are kind of closer to other markets which are developed. When you look at the map, of course, you see Italy on the other side, and you understand where you are, right? So you are in the Adriatic Sea. So I think opportunity is there, of course, as well, right? The challenge, I think, in Adriatic Sea, similar to the Black Sea, is the depth. That you need to go with floating foundations for in most of the cases for wind farms, and there, of course, it's a technology impediment which is not specific to the Balkans. I think everyone is just waiting for the floating foundations for offshore wind to be more commercialized, and costs to come down as well. And I think that will happen. The crowd is moving. The investors and developers are moving from the North Sea through to the Mediterranean. So now we see projects in the south of France, which are happening, and of course a lot of development in Italy, a lot of development in Greece, and in the Adriatic Sea as well. So I think it's an area which definitely should be explored probably more actively, because those projects are very long term. Even if you have visibility and exclusivity on the site, it may take up to 10 years for you to develop it. So the earlier we start, the quicker we can bring that capacity to the grid.
Completely. Oh, you touched upon the word of the day for the Balkans, of the month, which is a grid. So, Hrvoje, your thoughts?
Yes. But I can only compliment Alex. So he mentioned, for example, biogas and biomethane. INA is developing project. It is even financed from RRF, European Resilience Fund. We are building a biomethane plant. I hope next year it will be finished. And we had huge problems, with the grid connection. It is nearby, but that's why we need the regulators, government regulators, to allow, for example, biomethane to enter the grid, because I think the oxygen level is several times higher than in regular methane, and that is the problem for regulators. They can have issue with that. So without government help, not only in financing but also in let's say regulation, you cannot go forward with these kind of projects. Alex mentioned offshore wind. Croatia and Balkans generally, because of Adriatic Sea, had here huge potential. Maybe the obstacle is maybe tourism. It is not nice to see like with the platforms for the oil and gas production. It can be challenging in that way, but that's the most important thing. Our challenge is do we have steady and fast enough wind? So the measurements are here. We even developed strategy for Croatia that we can go forward, and also INA has a project pipeline in the project, but most definitely we need to have partners here, for example, who had the knowledge. Nobody developed offshore wind park in Croatia on this part of Europe, so you need to partner up with somebody who had that kind of knowledge. Maybe to your question, to answer, I think that the technology is here. You can always import the technology. There are solutions, and it's developing depending on which part of energy sector we are talking about. And we have a knowledge. Croatia definitely has knowledge. Unfortunately, many of our experts are going to work abroad, but that is normal. I think it is international sector, and we are also having here in our company working people from Slovakia, Hungary, Austria. So that is normal. For good knowledge, you have to pay it, and its competitiveness is here, so it's also not a problem. In certain parts of energy sector, Croatia is more competitive. In certain, is not. For example, whole this Balkan area has huge potential in geothermal energy. It is now a fancy topic. Everybody is talking about it. In Croatia, we have only installed 16 megawatts of electricity produced by geothermal energy, but not only for energy production, electricity production, also for heating. So that there are several huge projects that also government is financing to connect, to for the heating purposes. So there is huge potential here. What is the problem? For us, for example, as our company, we have 2 concessions. We are developing 2 huge geothermal projects. The problem is the risking factor. You have to drill, you have to spend a lot of money. Let me give you a brief comparison. To drill one hole for geothermal, you have to go rather deep. Here in Croatia, I can basically drill 2 holes for the gas purposes, or even, I don't know, five wells in Egypt. I don't know. So. And you have a lot of investors, knocking on the door and asking how it's going on, and they would like to chip in, but later, when there is no risk factor about the temperature and about the quantity of water, if it's not. So there are open issues. Even the financial institutions like ABE, who is now the Green Bank and everything, they will help, they will finance, but afterwards, when you de-risk the factor. So basically, in upstream business, that there is a risk that the well will be dry, not only for the hot water, but also for gas and oil the same. So in that factor, if you want to develop geothermal project, then again, some funds or government public funds should be invested in there. We have, let me give you a brief. Government here has fantastic project. They decided to drill, and it's funded by a European RRF fund, so resilience fund, to drill 4 wells to finance it, just to de-risk, to see what's down there, and if it is good, then they will develop it. It is for heating, so for public purposes. It's not maybe marketable like electricity, but for that purposes, the funds are here. So I believe in the next envelope, the next European budget. Luckily, Croatia is part of Europe, but those projects need to have certain de-risking factors to be funded. You will hard find private funds to go like that. So besides solar and wind, so we didn't touch it. It is developing, and the crucial problem of each electricity production, like solar and wind, is the grid. So you have to again invest in the grid. The question is who will pay for that. My current model is us, the consumers. But if you want to fasten up, speed up the grid development, I think that like in Europe is financing, like in Croatia, from again resilience fund. But you have to find additional fund to speed up the grid development to make marketable of those projects for private investors, of course.
That is a major pain point, and it's actually one of the main discussion topics in our agenda for the Balkans summit this year. And it's something we heard a lot from while we did the research, right? For like, what are the pain points, not just, and what are people actually interested discussing nowadays about the Balkans? The number one thing was the grid, obviously, and how well. It has many challenges, right? So, Alex, can you give us because you were the first one that touched upon it. Like, can you give us your understanding, your thoughts on how to develop it? There's a solution. I know we are now a bit stuck in terms. This is like the previous question. So never mind. So can we discuss about the grid a little bit?
Sure. I think it's situation is similar across every country, every market in the world. So you had traditional grid networks, traditional power generation, which was centralized. It was some, I don't know, say coal power plant right somewhere. If you think about Romania, it would have been somewhere inland, right, in closer to the coal mines. Bulgaria as well, in the southwestern part. And then when you go through so decarbonization, renewable energy. So typically, most of the capacity is built elsewhere, first of all, but also is decentralized, right? And that's the key mismatch in the grid design, right? The way it was built out initially, the network, and the power generation, which you have with renewable energy sources. The challenge here to go and re-engineer that grid is you have to because in a lot of cases you have to reinforce the existing lines, right? You have to build new ones. Building new transmission lines is a super complicated thing to do, especially in the countries that have political instability or not maybe not enough political leadership to implement strategic projects, right? Because often these projects require right of land acquisition, exercising a power of eminent domain by the government, something which is not socially typically. People don't get excited, right, about their land being expropriated. So that's why building these backbones of electricity grid, high voltage, very high voltage transmission lines is very difficult. But that's a process. Like I think Romania is quite successful in reinforcement their grid. So you clearly can achieve it. There is no technological risk as such, right? It's just a process which is quite onerous and takes time. The earlier I think you bite the bullet as a government and you develop a robust plan and start actually implementing it, the better it will be. But it's an issue, and it will continue to be an issue, for next 5-10 years. So you're not gonna go away from it for a while. But what's important as well here, I think, is interconnection between the countries, right? Because you've got different energy mixes, like Krova mentioned. In Croatia, you've got hydro, for example, right? You wouldn't have any hydro in. Maybe I'm wrong. To be honest, don't know the answer, but I'm guessing something like Serbia probably doesn't have a lot of hydro capacity, right? But they have a lot of plain land.
Yes,
which
Serbia is based on coal.
Yeah.
Mostly.
So, and if you take the coal away, you replace it with intermittent sources like wind and solar. And wind, again, is not particularly exciting in Croatia. And if you have interconnection between the countries within the region, so then presumably you can balance, you can balance the system on the price side as well, which is important because I think Balkans are more sensitive. Both businesses and population is more sensitive to the price of electricity. For businesses as well, because of cheaper, say, resources and human capital, your electricity component is just a larger percentage of your overall operational cost. So you would naturally be, more kind of alert to what's happening with the prices of electricity. And as we go through decarbonization, it's inevitable that the price will go up, right? The price will go up until indeed we can somehow retire that intermittency in the grid. So that's an issue. The grid issue again it will continue. Just we need to deal with it, and if the Balkans can find a way to deal with it collectively, right, to improve interconnection between the countries and ability to cross-sell electrons which are generated in one market on the other market. So that will be a big benefit.
That's very interesting. And during the recent COP in Baku, there was a really exciting panel that included Croatia was not there, but it was a ministerial panel that the Greek government organized, and it was cross-ministerial, and it was a lot about exactly this, like who is going to pay the price for the the interconnectors. How can we expand the grid? What are the necessities, the needs, but what are the opportunities as well for investors, right? And for anyone to tap into it and how to help it develop. And because we did not have Croatia, I would like to also hear your thoughts, your personal, but at the same time, the company's thoughts on the topic.
Well, we are small electricity producer. We have 2 projects developed regarding solar panels, and we are developing other projects, and of course we have, as any other investor, the grid connection issue. It depends where you are. In Croatia, maybe you are lucky, there is a space in the grid, and somewhere it's not. But as a company that is utilizing a lot of energy, we basically use that energy for our own purposes and our own utilization. And for large companies, I think that first step in that way is basically to reduce, to generate the most as green energy for yourself, and then later for the market. So that is first step, I think, and we are going that way. I can only again agree with what Alex said regarding problems of grid. We are primarily oil company, so that is. I will now talk as, I don't know, let's say expert. But we have the same problem as everybody has, and besides, you need time to build a new grid, and if you have money, even if you have financing, you need again a lot of time. Even you have stable political environment, for strategic projects like that. You have other side of the coin, and that is environmental protection and spatial plans. And in Europe is you have to comply with Nature 2030. It takes time, and there each project, even in Croatia, from environmental sides, has to be validated, and that takes time, especially for the spatial plans. That also takes time, and even if you have money. So I'm not that optimistic in grid development. I'm in 5 years maybe, but more in 10 years that you have major developments in that way. And what Alex said about balancing, that is true. Luckily for Croatia, was part of former Yugoslavia, and all those countries are basically interconnected rather well. We call it like Tesla person, the ring, and the countries of former Yugoslavia are rather well connected. But again, that grid was, to balance the energy needs, developed for the purposes of, economy in 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. But now everything is changed, and now you basically, yes, you have to develop the new grid and improve the existing one, and that will be the problem. Maybe maybe we won't have time, but the electricity grid is not the only one. I think that infrastructure is the basis for each development of each country. Not in transport, in everything, in telecommunications, in digital, you have to have all kind of grids to improve yourself. In the energy sector, the electricity grid is not the only one. We have to develop pipelines, interconnections regarding not only gas but also the oil and everything. And those projects are also something that in an international sense should be emphasized. For example, like to connect more, especially for example, natural gas. I think there is a huge space for improvement. Gas is rather cheap. It's transitional fuel. It's a good one, to substance, to change, coal plants to gas plants, and then that can be also generator of the development and energy development in the next several decades. Even more faster than I don't know, wind, solar, or geothermal and everything.
But there are many exciting opportunities, like we heard offshore, geothermal, gas as well, right? There's so many. Solar is the topic of the town, hydrogen, and so on and so forth. And I know that Alex does not have much time. I'm getting like my team sending me messages. So I want to maybe wrap with a comment from each of you on also the opportunities in decarbonization, because that's also like a very hot topic. Maybe 1-2 minutes on because we're talking, and maybe close with this, because we're talking about energy transition, renewables. We have geothermal. We go into that direction, but what about the decarbonization and storage as well? I know that both of you mentioned it as well. So maybe we touch upon this, and we can close with a nice quote before we see each other in Athens. Alex, you can start.
Sure. Look, on decarbonization, multiple things can be done, right? So you have small and medium-sized businesses, and that's, I think, where companies like us and small investors, small developers can play a role, right, by working with those organizations and finding a way to either introduce some behind-the-meter power generation or replace some of the energy inefficient equipment. So that's something which I don't think is extensively done in the region, but quite common in Western Europe as well. And you can do this off balance sheet, right, for the businesses, which often is welcome. On a more kind of industrial scale, I think the decarbonization for some industries like cement is not, you can't electrify away carbon, right, from cement industry. You cannot capture, I mean, most of them can capture, the technology is there, but the volume is such that you need a pipe, right? You need a pipeline and take it away from that emitter by pipeline, and that's where we get ourselves in the territory of a regulator and some national strategy about how to build that pipeline, where the sequestration site is, and so on. So that's quite, I think, policy sensitive topic, but ultimately it's a very important one, because I agree with what he said about hydrocarbons, that they're not going to go away in the foreseeable future. And even something like emissions from, say, gas power plant, you need to capture, which you can do today. But when sequestering those emissions in our part of the world is currently a fantasy, right, at scale. So, but this is something which is done in Western Europe and can be replicated. Here. So we've got this Pannonian basin right across Croatia, Romania, Serbia, south of Hungary, where you've got some depleted fields, right, which you can potentially purpose for carbon sequestration. So I think the pieces are in there. You just need some players who would come in and put that all together, right? And it's very likely that you need some intergovernmental effort as well to make that system like common use, Balkans, kind of inter-Balkans network, and then it will just look as exciting as what people in the North Sea are building.
Completely. Hrvoje?
But I talk about a lot of things, but maybe I agree with Alex. You are definitely right. INA has, let me again say, one project. We have a project of, we call it enhanced oil recovery. Basically, we capture CO2 and use it and inject it in our wells to try to get more oil out of the earth. But the same technology, the same way we can use that to inject that CO2 for storage purposes. So there was a part of time in the last 5 years that CCU and CCS were, let's say, fancy topics, but not anymore. So there are debates: is that environmental enough, etc., etc. But again, we have to, work on it. You need to, lobby. You need to see with research, is that the way to go? I hope it is, because in the future there won't be any oil in Pannonian Basin, but you can then use those wells and as a storage for that purposes. And again, we have infrastructure. Majority of huge industrial factories and everything are close to network of pipelines and the wells. So you can use it for that, and I think that is also one way to go to, to help that green transition and decarbonization in general. So that is also one way to go. And now the question is, you have several ways to go. Do we want to develop, carbon capture technology and go forward with that? Do we want to go to synthetic fuels? Do we want to go to hydrogen? Or do we want to, I think that current battle is won by electricity in general, with solar and wind and the grid development, but that is not the only way. So, in general, when you ask normal people on the street what is a green transition, they will talk about electrical vehicles and batteries, but that's not the only thing. So that in short, I think I said enough. Thank you.
Completely. Thank you both very, very much. I think that we covered quite a few topics, and I think that we should maybe after the Balkans do a follow-up on a couple of things and then drill down more technical topics and discuss and add a few more speakers. But I think for anyone that was not aware of what's currently happening in the Balkans, like future investors, companies that want to enter the market, this was like a very good first layer of information from different perspectives. But I love the fact that you both agreed on most things, which makes the challenges common, the opportunities common as well, and plenty. So I'll see you both in Athens in April. And in the meantime, I would like to ask the audience if they have any questions, they can write to us and I can distribute it to you and we can publish them. And wish you both so much luck in what you're doing. We are changing the energy landscape of the Balkans, and it's very important because it's not just one country. It's like multiple countries with different needs, common needs, and common backgrounds. So see you both in April. Thank you very much for your time and your contribution, and best of luck on your projects. Hvala vam puno.
Thank you.
That's all I can.
Thank you.